Welcome everyone to the Roundtable with American mayors, organized by Urban Economy Forum US chapter. It's a great opportunity to see all of you here, and it's a great opportunity to start a kind of collaboration with city leaders in America. And we hope to develop our collaboration with all of you here from World Urban Pavilion in Regent Park, powered by Daniel. We create kind of global exchange hub for exchange knowledge and innovation around the globe, and I'm sure you have a fantastic experience, best practices that you can share with the globe through the pavilion here. And also I believe we have a fantastic opportunity to develop more partnership with American mayors and cities through our branch in US. Thank you so much.
Greetings and welcome to Urban Economy Forum Annual Conference. My name is Vishali Kushan. It is my honor to open the U.S. Mayoral Roundtable discussion. Our focus today is the Sustainable Development Goal and Finance. Cities are key in achieving sustainable development goals and are vital platform for innovative actions. That's where unconventional solutions often come to life. Cities balance social and environmental concerns. City leadership influence all sectors and help shape policies to meet the everyday human needs of shelter, security, and sustenance. Often, we don't realize the amount of work mayors put in to make our day-to-day life better. Today, we have 7 servant leaders who will share their thoughts and experiences with us. 2 mayors have shared their thoughts via a video message. We will play those messages in the end. The speaking order has been predetermined. It is my pleasure to welcome our first speaker today, Mayor of Oakland, California, Libby Scaff. Mayor Scaff, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. And I am excited to be here with the mayors of America, some of the hardest working public servants on the planet, to talk about how at the local level, we are finding ways to finance implementation of our SDG goals. And I want to highlight 3 vehicles in particular: regulation, public-private partnerships, and the power of voters and people organizing, people power. Regulations. In Oakland, we are using changes to our building code to require that all new buildings be fully electrified so that we can eliminate emissions from natural gases. And we analyzed this change to ensure that this would not add to the cost of housing production, as we also seek to house our unsheltered and our struggling residents. So building codes have been a very effective measure for us, and they don't cost us anything. And those regulations send a signal to the private marketplace that has created a billion-dollar industry of new water heating equipment, new innovations that now can come to market and be successful because of our regulations. Another example is changing our land use or zoning regulations to require more density close to jobs, close to transit, to reduce long commutes that are causing so many emissions, as well as to eliminate parking requirements that used to be required for new buildings that now are gone. And the state of California has followed in a similar suit, both through eliminating parking requirements near good transit, as well as signaling that only electric cars will be allowed to be sold in California in these coming years, and that is shifting the marketplace away from gas guzzling and polluting cars. Also, locally, we've changed our regulations to influence our food systems. We're allowing private citizens in the city to grow produce in their backyards and on their rooftops, and to actually sell them at the local level, creating a circular economy, giving an income source to our low-income residents. And that is another thing that cities can do. The second tool is public-private partnerships. One example I want to lift up, and there are so many, but there's an Oakland-based company that has actually created what is almost a virtual peaker plant. In California, when our energy grid is stressed, dirty coal burning power plants have to be turned on to keep our lights on. And what this company has done is it has gotten people to actually accept payment for turning off their electricity, for eliminating their electricity use at the times when the grid needs it. And this has literally created the ability for California to not turn on these dirty power plants just because of the immediate and timely reduction of energy use. And our partnership with this company has been to ensure that our lowest income residents can take advantage of the income earning opportunity by being part of this people-powered clean energy power source, essentially. We all know the cleanest energy is the energy that is not used. And Ohm Connect is a business that is actually profiting by using this model. Very creative. And then finally, I want to talk about people power. Many of us in California, and I know two of my compatriots will speak later, are actually working to organize voters to vote to actually increase property taxes to pay for more housing built to these new environmental levels, and housing that is affordable to our most vulnerable Californians. California has a crisis of homelessness right now, and that is something that we can address through voter-approved tax increases. So that doesn't have to come out of our basic services that we already are struggling to pay as a city. It can be a new source of money distributed through all the property owners in California. And by organizing voters to actually vote to increase taxes, we are also creating a political voice to stand up in our state capitol and demand more policies, more investments in things like social housing, like addressing homelessness, like addressing our climate catastrophe. And so these are three ways that we in Oakland are working to address our SDGs. Since I haven't seen the red background come on yet, oh, there we go. I will add one fourth thing for people to consider, and that is land back for our indigenous people. In the United States, there are federally recognized tribes, but there are many indigenous people, particularly that have come from America's cities, that are not federally recognized. And it is extremely difficult to give them their land back. In Oakland, we created a permanent easement to give use of land back to our first people, the Ohlone, and I believe that that is a healing gesture that also advances the SDGs. Thank you for your time. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mayor Scaff. It is my pleasure to welcome our next speaker, Mayor of Baltimore, Maryland, Brandon Scott. Mayor Brandon, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for having me. It's so great to be here with all my fellow U.S. mayors who are the hardest working public servants in the world. And as we all know as mayors, it's crucial that we are that we use the Sustainable Development Goals as a framework to implement meaningful change in our respective cities. And I see my own administrative policies as being in direct alignment with the UN's goals. This isn't about making isolated decisions, but rather implementing policies, making investments, and establishing systems and working collaboratively on solutions that not only benefit our direct constituents, but also people across the globe and those who are unborn. From the start of my administration, we made it very clear that sustainability, improving the lives of all of our residents, was going to be a top priority. And we have to respond forcefully to the challenges of the ever-changing world: climate change, economic inequity, health disparities, and decades of neglect in our most underserved communities. We have to leave the world or cities better off than we found them, so that generations that come after us have the opportunity to grow into their best selves. And I believe it's on us as mayors to leverage the tools at our disposal to implement that vision and follow through on our commitments. Nothing in this world exists in a vacuum, and we have to operate with that level of coordination that allows us to implement deep and meaningful progress from every single angle. Here in Baltimore, we've already started that work. We've now invested over $200 million into equitable neighborhood development, creating more affordable housing units for our residents, addressing blighted properties, and helping residents make their homes healthier and more sustainable. We've made unprecedented investments into job training and career opportunity programs like our Youth Works, Train Up, and Hire Up initiatives, where we're focusing on our young people, folks who have been out of work, and folks who have been returning to our community, and people who are just underemployed, to provide them with the best opportunities possible, with the largest investment into workforce that the city has ever seen. We've also implemented our Water for All program to make water bills more affordable for lower income residents here in Baltimore, and moving to have our water be something that is done by how much money you make, because we know that water is something that we all need, and people should not be struggling and making the decision on whether they're going to have electricity or water in their homes because of how much money they have. We put over $120 million towards recreation improvements. That includes our playgrounds, our parks, so that we can have places outside in neighborhoods where they have been struggling, to have places to recreate, to be together as a family, to be more healthy, and provide that opportunity as well. We also did something very important around food. We set aside money for food distribution, online SNAP assistant, and BIPOC-led urban farming to tackle nutritional insecurity in our most underserved communities, because we know that it's food deserts, healthy food priority areas, whatever you want to call them. They exist in so many of our urban cores, and we have to fight that in every way. And in conjunction with Mayors for Guaranteed Income, like some of my other mayors, we recently launched the Baltimore Young Family Success Fund, our guaranteed income pilot program, which we hope to see as a success to help push for a federal guaranteed income. We banned plastic bags and styrofoam in Baltimore, and we have committed to achieving a 30% reduction in carbon emissions by 2025, 60% in 2030, and complete carbon neutrality by 2045. That is the framework. And as you know and can see, this work requires a mix of executive action, legislative collaboration, and a deep and wide-ranging partnership. Our purview is limited, but we can fill in the gaps by supporting minority and women-owned businesses, working with our school system to renovate and modernize school facilities to give our young people the best learning conditions, working with our state and federal partners on sustainable infrastructure, inclusive public transit, and green energy projects that connect our communities rather than divide them as they have. And we also rely heavily on intergovernmental partnerships to move the needle on urgent climate issues. This includes fostering cross-agency collaboration, working with our state counterparts, our county counterparts. In this city, we have several committees, working groups, even a sustainability and resiliency subcabinet that helps pursue a more ambitious climate agenda. One of the great things about intergovernmental work and partnership is they help make us more strategic and mobilize us in ways that we didn't before. So we will continue collaborating here in Baltimore, making our communities more resilient by doing everything that we can so that the world can be a better place.
Thank you, Mayor Brandon. It is my pleasure to welcome our next speaker, the Mayor of Philadelphia, Jim Kenney. Mayor Kenney, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vishali, and thank you to the Urban Economy Forum for inviting me to be here today. As you said, I'm Jim Kenney, the current mayor of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. As we all know, the past 2 years have not been easy. Challenges we faced as a city, including the global pandemic, political turmoil at the national level, and intensified violence have tested our collective resolve. But with resilience and determination, we are facing those challenges head on. Philadelphia is a proud, welcoming city. Today, more than 1.6 million people live here, making Philadelphia the nation's 6th largest city, and our African-American, Hispanic, and Asian residents make up the majority of the city's population. As the birthplace of our great nation, Philly has played a prominent role in our country's history. Now we are forging the way as this country looks to the future. In 2016, when I first became mayor, we embarked on a mission to tackle Philadelphia's then biggest challenges, from a struggling education system and intergenerational poverty, the public health crises, and much more. Our goal, to increase equity and opportunity so that all Philadelphians, regardless of what corner of the city they live in, can reach their full potential. We believe then and believe now that our plans and goals for Philadelphia must meet the needs of the people who live, work, and visit our city. We're making investments that prioritize quality education for children, youth, and adults to support a more rapid and equitable recovery and to break the intergenerational cycle of poverty. Support for neighborhood commercial corridors, housing, infrastructure, and public spaces is also essential to driving sustainable economic growth. That's why communities throughout Philadelphia are seeing the benefits of newly rebuilt and updated parks, recreation centers, and playgrounds. Our rebuild program, an historic investment in Philadelphia communities, has thrived this year with several ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings taking place at these places. And because we know the key to solving poverty is education and starting that quality education early, we've continued to make historic investments in education at all levels, from pre-K all the way through community college. Our PHL pre-K program has offered quality free pre-K to more than 13,000 children since 2017. These initiatives simply would not be possible without the passage of the Philadelphia beverage tax, which has raised hundreds of millions of dollars. And I would recommend looking at that tax for all the cities that are on here today. It is a harmless way of making money, of raising dollars to spend on really important public projects. In addition to focusing on quality of life and education for all, we're also making it easier to walk and bike in our city. Philadelphia is older than many cities in the United States, so our streets are smaller and our center city area is much more dense. It brings challenges, but it also brings advantages with livability. Philadelphia is ideally situated for pedestrians, and we are constantly improving on that situation. Similar to many of our cities, the climate crisis is already bringing significant consequences for Philadelphia residents in the form of more frequent and severe heat, storms, and flooding. Recent events offered troublesome insights into a future where environmental and climate injustices continue unresolved. Philadelphia experienced that firsthand in September of 2021 when Hurricane Ida caused stark flooding across our city and region. We are addressing climate change in dramatic ways. Our Office of Sustainability launched Philadelphia's first Environmental Justice Advisory Commission. This is the stark step and commitment to addressing environmental harms in our communities. And our administration has also taken a step in the right direction with a goal to reduce Philly's carbon emissions by 80% by the year 2050. However, beyond the acute impacts of extreme weather, the rapidly changing climate is also amplifying many of our city's persistent challenges, such as housing affordability, neighborhood instability, aging infrastructure, pollution, and associated health disparities. This is one of the reasons the bipartisan infrastructure law will be transformative. Not only will Philadelphia and other cities across the country be able to address critical equity, safety, and climate needs, this federal investment is a critical opportunity to grow Black and brown businesses. That's why Philadelphia is investing $20 million this year to prepare for the bipartisan infrastructure law. We are prepared to compete successfully for federal dollars and deliver high quality infrastructure projects, all while elevating minority businesses by ensuring they get a fair, equitable shot at contracts on these projects. Finally, we know that safe and stable housing is a critical foundation for public health. And under our administration, affordable housing has been a core focus. Philadelphia's eviction diversion program and the city's mortgage foreclosure prevention program are both focused on keeping Philadelphians in their homes. We know that the most affordable home is usually the one that you are in. The city's mortgage foreclosure program has helped over 17,000 homeowners do just that and is recognized nationally. And during the pandemic, we were proud of the work done through the city's rental assistance program, PHL Rent Assist, which also heralded as a national model for distributing relief. Indeed, over 39,000 households benefited from over $253 million in rental assistance and utility payments over the 4 phases of the program. And while we know these achievements are laudable, our communities still need support. We know there is still much more that needs to be done, and that is why we're excited to learn from others to create opportunities for collaboration like this one. And thank you very much for your time. I appreciate being here.
Thank you, Mayor Kenny. It is my pleasure to welcome our next speaker, Mayor of San Jose, California, Sam Liccardo. Mayor Liccardo, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for allowing me to join the mayoral parade here this morning. Hey, I figured I'd focus on sustainable development goal number 11 around sustainable cities. And I know there are many dimensions of sustainability, but I thought it might help just to focus on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, since that's what often comes to mind. Our strategy here in San Jose has been pretty straightforward. We need to set an ambitious target that's important for every community. And I think we've all found ourselves in different holes of different kinds. And the rule of holes is when you find yourself in a hole to stop digging. So we focused on that. I'll get to that in a moment. Our next strategy has been around greening the grid, pushing our fossil fueled economy onto that electrified green grid, and then buttressing that grid. So that's been our overarching strategy. I'll just describe each step very briefly. First, we set ambitious targets most recently to try to become a zero emission city by 2030. And yes, we are very cognizant that that is extremely ambitious. But what it forces is an attention to rapid acceleration of everything we're doing, that the transformation has to be immediate. And the good news is in the heart of Silicon Valley, we have an awful lot of very smart and nimble people who can help us with that acceleration and catalyze it. In terms of stopping the digging, you know, like so many cities in the Western United States, and I know in parts of Canada as well, you know, sprawl has really characterized our urban development since the advent of the automobile. And so we've been pushing very hard, in particular with some ballot measures. We've been going to the voters because we've got some very powerful developers who are trying to build out in hillsides and in open areas we'd like to preserve for open space. And the voters have been overwhelmingly receptive. And I think we find that in a lot of communities, that voters are willing both to halt sprawling development, but also to finance new ways of purchasing open space. We're partnering with philanthropy to purchase large areas of tracts in what we call Coyote Valley and other kinds of open space for preservation that really supports our resilience against floods and wildfires and other risks. And then we've, of course, focused our development along transit corridors in our downtown, like so many cities have. I think what's most impactful, though, is how we've been greening our grid. We've been decarbonizing the grid at a faster rate, I think, than any city in the country with the founding of San Jose Clean Energy in 2018. And we now have, as of today, decarbonized 95% of electricity that's provided to our residents and businesses. So we're 95% carbon free. We became the largest city in the country back in 2018 to create this, it's called a community choice aggregator. It enables us to procure energy as a utility, as a public utility, that really gives our residents and businesses a choice of the source of the electricity that they want to purchase. And it has become a great source also of local funding for purchasing contracts for solar generation and for energy storage for batteries. And we know that's really important. So as we've greened the grid, now our challenge is really decarbonizing the economy. And that really comes into two big categories: buildings and transportation, the two great emitters of greenhouse gas emissions. So back in 2019, we banned gas connections to any new commercial and residential buildings. We think that's pretty critical to, again, stop the digging. So we're seeing massive expansions, for example, of corporate offices for headquarters of Adobe, and Google's got about 7 million square feet under development. All of that is going to be all electric, no gas whatsoever. And then we're partnering with some nonprofits to help electrify existing buildings, particularly multifamily buildings, because we know that's where the real challenge is, helping modest income homeowners, renters, and so forth be able to retrofit what they have now to be able to move from gas appliances to electric. We think PACE programs, what we call property assessed clean energy programs, are going to be really essential. And there have been problems with those programs in the past, certainly issues of fraud in particular. And we really think it's critical with good regulation of programs that enable property owners to finance clean energy retrofits through property taxes. That's going to be really essential for our transition. And then transportation, I know every city in the country is working on building out transit. We've passed 5 ballot measures since the year 2000 to expand and electrify our transit rail. It's investing more than $13 billion, 13 billion in US dollars for that effort. And we're going to electrifying our bus fleets, as we have completely now at our airport. And we've got the 3rd highest rate of adoption of electric vehicles as well. And we're trying to accelerate that through various means. Certainly there are federal and state subsidies that are available. We're also investing a lot of grants, particularly to try to make electric vehicle charging infrastructure more available in low-income communities. And now with a state ballot measure called Prop 30, trying to find ways to also finance the subsidized access to electric vehicles for low and modest income residents. And then finally, we need to reinforce our grid. The electric grid is the largest, most complex machine on the planet. Here in North America, it's really critical, though, that we reinforce it in various ways because it's failing us in many places. In California, we've got a very poor maintenance and capital condition in our grid, a lot of challenges with peak use and high heat, as well as with wildfires. And so we're pushing forward aggressively with the development of microgrids here in the downtown of our city. We think that's going to be an essential strategy for a lot of cities to keep essential assets, our fire stations and hospitals, resilient, but also to really push us toward solar and storage and other clean energy options that will ultimately reduce some of the dramatic costs that we're seeing now to maintain and replace the grid infrastructure. So we think it's going to take a lot of us pushing together. We're thrilled to be part of the push, along with the wonderful mayors that you're listening to today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Liccardo. It is my pleasure to welcome our next speaker, Mayor of College Park, Maryland, Patrick Yan. Mayor Yan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Urban Economy Forum for inviting me to be part of this esteemed panel. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll say a little bit about College Park and who we are first, since many of you may not be familiar with our city. We are a city of about 34,000, rapidly growing. We are a suburb of Washington, D.C., and we are the home of the flagship campus of the University System of Maryland. And even though we're a smaller city, we're able to punch above our weight, largely because we rely heavily on partnerships to do things like accomplish the sustainable development goals and the many priorities that we as a community have. In particular, of particular importance is our partnership with the University of Maryland College Park, which it bears has a significant weight within our local economy. About 70% of our residents are students, and much of our economy is driven by the university. So we do much in partnership with them. And in particular, we rely on the heavy brain trust that we have with the University of Maryland to assist us in pursuing the sustainability goals. But we also work closely with the university on things such as development. Historically, the University of Maryland was a commuter campus, But as it's grown and as the region has grown, we recognize the need to pursue really smart growth to enable the many thousands of students who historically have driven from all over the region to go to the University of Maryland, as well as the faculty and staff who come to work here to live closer to campus. And over the past 15 years or so, we've seen, working together with the university, seen an increase in about 7,000 or 8,000 student housing beds. We also are opening some of the first non-student housing, non-student multifamily housing in our downtown area in several years. And we have incentive programs in place that are funded both through the university and through the city to provide grants for faculty and staff who work at the university to purchase homes and live in College Park. And we want that to not just, we don't just want more housing, we want housing that's available for everybody. We want affordable housing. We need to build in the opportunity for everybody to live in College Park. And recently, we have also been partnering with Amazon. Amazon is moving on the other side of the DC Metro, opening their second headquarters in Northern Virginia, and is investing in affordable housing around the region. They are building right now with Amazon funding a completely affordable multifamily housing development right near our metro station, the College Park Metro. We are also in partnership with the university, once again, in the process of establishing a community preservation trust. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a joint ownership model where a trust will own the land on which a property sits. A homeowner can own the improvements on the land. And because it's a partial ownership of the property, it enables people to purchase homes at a more affordable rate. This has two goals in addition to providing affordable housing. It helps us with neighborhood stabilization, as we see often with many university communities, also with lower income communities. We often see investors come in and convert owner-occupied single-family homes to rental properties. As part of the community preservation trust, to participate in that trust, homeowners must commit to maintaining the property as owner-occupied during the period that they own it. So it enables greater investment, more people to invest in our community at a lower rate. We're also, as we pursue enabling more people to live within College Park, we also want to enable more people to travel around College Park in more sustainable ways. Historically, we're a very automobile-oriented suburb, but we are working to change that through sustainable investment in sustainable transportation. Currently, we have under construction the Purple Line, which is a new light rail that will connect Montgomery County to Prince George's County. It has 21 stations within its route, and 4 of those stations are within the city of College Park. 5 of those stations are considered part of a university zone, and students, faculty, and staff at the University of Maryland will be able to travel between those 5 stations at no cost. We're also investing significantly in walkability and bikeability. We're part of the Capital Trails Network, which is a $1 billion+ investment in trails around the capital region. But we, in particular in College Park, are re-envisioning 2 of our key thoroughfares to make them more bikeable and walkable, so that people can travel more easily between our residential areas and the university and our innovation centers. One last thing I want to say: we're pursuing restorative justice in our historic African American community in College Park, which was devastated by urban renewal in the 1970s and 1980s. And the university is playing a significant role in that as well, helping us to think about how we can invest in that community to benefit it and make up for the mistakes and the discrimination that the city engaged in the past. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor Yuan. It is my pleasure to welcome our next speaker, Mayor of Hoboken, New Jersey, Ravi Bhalla. Mayor Ravi Bhalla, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning. It's a pleasure to be here amongst so many talented and proactive mayors with an incredible number of innovative ideas. Thank you very much for having me on the forum. It's an honor to be here. Hoboken, just by way of background, a couple of quick facts. We are a neighboring city to Manhattan, so right across the Hudson River is Hoboken. We're known as the Mile Square City. We're literally 1 square mile. Our population is 60,000 residents. Think about that, 60,000 residents in 1 square mile. So we're actually the 4th most densely populated city in the United States of America, in the entire country. We're also the most walkable city in the country. The highest percentage of residents in the United States rely upon mass transit in Hoboken to get to and from work. So it's within that context that we think about resiliency and climate change. The biggest impact that gave us that proverbial wake-up call was Superstorm Sandy, where water simply, as you might have seen now with Hurricane Ian, in the West Coast, the Gulf Coast of Florida, the storm surge, the coastal surge, Hoboken is a coastal community, was so incredible, as it was in Ian. It literally dumped 1 million gallons of coastal water into the city of Hoboken, which is already largely below sea level, creating this bathtub effect that put the entire city, not the entire city, about 80% of the city underwater. So what we endeavored to do, working with our state and federal partners, was create, and also with the Dutch, we hired a company out in the Netherlands, OMA, is create a model. It's called Rebuild by Design. And the idea is to break the cycle of destruction and rebuilding, destruction and rebuilding that we're really seeing in Florida right now. We don't want to be in a place where we see another storm and we see that destruction and we see that rebuilding. So how do we break that cycle? So Rebuild by Design does that. It's an innovative, comprehensive approach to create a resilient city for generations to come. There are various elements of it. The main one is the resist structure. We don't call them storm walls because we have a beautiful waterfront or barriers. But what we've done and what makes Rebuild by Design so innovative is that you'll see a park and we use that park as defense against flooding. How do we do that? You'll have berms or flood protection mechanisms or infrastructure underneath the park, and then above ground, you have open space for the community to enjoy. That is being facilitated in conjunction with New Jersey, and then chronic flooding. There's also, in addition to coastal surge, there's also chronic flooding. And what we've been able to do is create what we call resiliency parks in Hoboken, where we've combined both above ground green infrastructure with below ground water detention tanks that can withhold, depending on the park. We've got about 3 or 4 of them right now. Up to 1 million gallons of stormwater in the event of a serious storm surge. So it's things like that that we're trying to develop. We're in the construction phase, and hopefully other communities can replicate, assuming this is successful, that type of model to combat climate change. Mayor Schaaf and Mayor Scott and a number of other mayors went over other building code ordinances that we've implemented that can actually protect people and save lives. And also, we've noticed in the private sector that developers cannot get financing that they need unless they can prove that they are building something that's resilient. We've codified that through stormwater management ordinances to make sure that if it floods, we need to know where the water is going to go. and ensure that developers, if they do develop, have a plan to manage any stormwater in their areas. So again, it's been a pleasure having you all and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Bhalla. It is my pleasure to welcome our last speaker, Mayor of Los Angeles, California, Eric Garcetti. Mayor Garcetti, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Vaishali. Appreciate it very much, and great to be with my fellow brother and sister mayors. What a joy it is. I'm sorry that I just joined us. We've, as you've been probably reading in the news, had a huge cyber attack on our school district here. So we were debriefing, and luckily we're able to, I think, thwart it. But the work of mayors is never done at the local level. And thank you so much to the Urban Economy Forum, really, for bringing us together to see the power of local action globally. And specifically on sustainable development, the work that we've done to really position our global city as a partner with other cities around the world on issues from gender equity to our climate fight, to the work on economic opportunity, migration, and more. And it's very timely to have this panel. I think it was just really well done because cities are acting on and advancing international agendas, common goals on those areas. Our first deputy mayor of international relations, one of the first in the country, if not the first, Nina Hachigian, Ambassador Nina Hachigian, it was announced yesterday, just joined the State Department to take the subnational diplomacy and to really embed it into the United States State Department to look at how we can organize this as a nation and how we can deploy that into the world and deploy the world into our cities to help accelerate the work that we're doing on smart infrastructure, inclusive and equitable economic growth, and creating communities of belonging where everybody can thrive. And I love that word, belonging. A lot of people have always talked about diversity and inclusion, and those words are adequate, but don't really meet the spirit of what I try to imbue, which is a sense of belonging means we're equal. Inclusion means somebody's more powerful and deigning to include you. Diversity is just a descriptor, but really trying to build a sense of belonging at a time when global citizens feel less and less like they belong to either their local or national entities, I think is critical. But we know sustainable development is not something that's negotiated and then implemented in faraway places. It happens block by block and neighborhood by neighborhood in our cities. It's we who build the housing and the public spaces that connect our residents through public transit. We provide education and caregiving. And we're responsible for the most basic of needs, water, sanitation, safety in our communities. So you can't talk about SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, without a plan of action. Within, for our case, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, which is the largest municipal utility in the country. There's no SDG 9, industry and infrastructure, without LAX. And I joke that the 7 most feared words in Los Angeles are, can you pick me up at LAX? Because there's so much time lost to an inadequate infrastructure that's been there for too long. Or the Port of LA, which is the busiest port complex in the Western Hemisphere. So we're investing in those to achieve our sustainable development goals, but also to improve the quality of life directly. We're putting SDG 7 into action through the Eland Solar and Storage Center, which is the largest solar and battery energy storage system in the US, coming in cheaper than a natural gas plant would, and helping us achieve 97% carbon-free power by the end of this decade and 100% by 2035. This in a utility that was just 2% renewable when I started here a couple decades ago. And Measure M, which was our local measure to build 15 new transit lines, the largest such measure in American history ×2, is also about connecting underserved neighborhoods and providing jobs in communities of color so that people who need transit can also build that transit and have a middle-class life and stay in those communities with affordable housing and then use that transit to get to and from work. So the work we do touches on everything. And we have to bring values to that work of gender equity, of racial equity, of religious equity to the lived experience of our residents. Last year, I signed an $11 billion budget that was centered on justice and equity. We invested over $1 billion on our homelessness crisis. We piloted the largest basic income program in the country. And so whether it's seeing SDG 11 in action with that or SDG 10, we also have participatory budgeting so that SDG 16, our participatory democracy is embodied not just in an abstract way, but we actually give the dollars to the people and say, you spend it where you want. So our addiction, I'll kind of say this in closing because I want to get to the panel discussion, to poverty and inequality in our country. And I call it an addiction because that's what it is. Will only end with concrete investments in our communities and these values coming together. And to me, that's what the common language of SDGs gives to us, a common language to scale. Good mayors borrow, great mayors steal. And I hope that we will continue to steal from each other how we get to 100% renewable energy, how we are able to make sure that there's true gender equity, how we connect on things like green shipping with cities like Mumbai and Shanghai and others. And at COP26 last year, as the chair of C40, I think almost every city that's on this call joined with 1,050 cities to pledge to have our emissions by 2030 and to zero them out by 2050. The power of that, my friends, was the equivalent of the 5th largest country in the world. And it was the first time the UN invited a non-national actor to be on the stage of that COP to be able to talk about it. So I look forward to the discussion. I thank my fellow mayors for all the great ideas I've stolen from you. Hopefully give a couple to you to steal as well. But let's make sure that we communicate those SDGs in a very human way, so they don't become abstract numbers, but they become concrete improvements for our lives. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Garcetti. And again, to all other mayors for sharing your thoughts and experiences with us. Now we will hold a Q&A session or a discussion amongst us. Today is the second day for the conference. Many issues have been discussed and concerns raised, such as job growth, economic stability, investment in technology, environmental social governance, and the use of resources. How cities can best transform as we all recover from what we hope was the worst of COVID. Let's begin with Mayor Scaff, and we will use the same order.
Thank you. And I apologize, this will be the only question I can stay for. I have another obligation. But I want to emphasize that as mayors, we do have resources to invest, and we must invest them strategically. We in California, and my friends Eric and Sam were part of this, lobbied for service dollars to get our young people trained and engaged in career paths. And our strategic choice was to align those career paths and those job training resources with two of our values: one, climate change, and two, equity. To invest very intentionally into those communities and those young people that were most removed from opportunity, and to train them to be part of the new green economy that is driving our advancements and our ability to meet our climate change goals, has been an excellent investment of our public dollars, both locally and from the great state of California. Thank you for being together this morning, and I'd love to hear what everyone else has to say.
Next will be Mayor Scott.
Yeah, thank you. I think that, listen, when we have something happen like we had with the pandemic, we have to take the opportunity to come back, not just stronger, but better than we ever had. And I think what we've been able to do coming out of that for us is really to take advantage of things that we would have never found out really in the masses, and be able to make these investments. Thankful to our president and administration for all the things they've given us. But we've used that work to, like I talked about before, to really bolster our workforce development, so that when you do that, when you're providing workforce training and job training for folks who you know can actually help to build this affordable housing that you also are now going to be funding, you're doing it in a way that you're getting two bites at the apple, so to speak. Not only are you eliminating years of not having housing, not having supports in these neighborhoods, not having job opportunities, but you're putting yourself in a position where the very people who are the most impacted can be directly working on the change themselves. And we have to do that in every single area that we can, so that we come out of this this once in a generation experience better.
Thank you, Mayor Brandon. I believe next, Mayor Jim Kinney had to drop off. So can we hear from Mayor Liccardo?
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you. Really stole a lot of good ideas from my fellow mayors. In the words of Mayor Garcetti, through the pandemic, we had a great opportunity for many of us to exchange ideas and to learn from one another. One of them really emerged around how we could do more along the lines of what Libby suggested to reach a lot of our young people who had lost jobs. So many of those service jobs that were decimated through the early stages of the pandemic. And so we created what's called a Resilience Corps. We used some federal money to invest in our lowest income neighborhoods and hire hundreds of young adults in supporting our city's resilience in various ways. For example, clearing defensible space to protect us from wildfire and planting drought tolerant trees and plants in our parks, and also supporting basic needs, distribution of food and vaccination centers and so forth. We've kept the Resilience Corps going now. It's actually been a wonderful way for us to create a pipeline for talent to support city functions, idealistic young people with a lot of energy who want to be part of solutions, and really leveraging the great energy of our next generation. We know that they're particularly passionate about climate change. And so this is a great opportunity for us to really groom the leaders of tomorrow and bring them into leadership. So we are going to continue to expand the Resilience Corps here in San Jose. And we think that service is something that is unifying for all of us, particularly in these very challenging and often divisive moments.
Thank you. Mayor Patrick Wuhan.
Yeah, thank you. So one thing that the pandemic really highlighted for us was the degree of codependence between the University of Maryland and the city and the community around it. At the beginning of the pandemic, the students were largely sent home. All the ones that were in student housing were essentially left. When we spent the next several months talking about how we would prepare for the large density of population when the students return. And also how we could work to support our businesses, make sure that our economy was not completely devastated by the loss of much of their customer base. So we engaged in regular meetings, and we planned on what we could do to safely return the students to the community, to class, to support the ones that were there in terms of going through this challenging time in their lives, and when they weren't able to connect with their friends. As a result, we were successful in regular collaboration in limiting the loss of local businesses, in limiting transmission. We have one of the lowest transmission rates of any major four-year college and community around it, and that helped strengthen really the both our understanding of the level of interdependence between the university and the community, and also our ability to work together.
Mayor Balla.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to what Mayor Patrick Wohan from College Park was saying in his initial remarks about trying to connect, trying to meet residents where they are. In our public housing, they're not talking about climate change. They're talking about jobs, they're talking about healthcare, they're talking about unemployment. Climate change is an academic, it's thought of as a white thing that a lot of Black and brown communities might not talk about as much. So we need to meet people where they are. One thing in Hoboken that we've done is a community solar project with the Hoboken Housing Authority, where we're using cost savings through renewable energy to electrify public housing to create that restorative justice that the mayor was talking about, where we can create a fund that will address housing code issues, that will address food insecurity, that will address unemployment, and really making sure that residents see the connection that climate change often it's obviously an environmental justice issue, but it impacts disadvantaged communities incredibly, oftentimes more so here in Hoboken, more so than other communities. But to get average residents to see that connection, it's incumbent upon public officials to really do that. Not just talk about climate change in these four corners, but see how climate change connects to the everyday lives on these bread and butter issues, unemployment, public safety, you name it. All of that is impacted by climate change, and creating that connection, I think, is very critical.
Mayor Garcetti.
Thank you. And really great hearing all these ideas and all these programs from my fellow mayors. And thanks again. To Libby's point, and to what Mayor Sam was saying, in California, I was given a great statistic recently that between our local, we have an Angelino Corps, Climate Corps, California Service Corps, we have more just in the last 3 years, young people that are now working on issues from racial justice to immigration to climate change to service in general to teaching, public health, than the entire Peace Corps for the United States of America. So, this stuff can be scaled up relatively quickly. There are dollars out there right now, and this is life-changing work. But don't wait for the pipeline to produce it. Build the pipelines new. When we passed the largest, local measure that I mentioned in U.S. history, it's about 1 million jobs over 40 years that will be going to transportation. But we realize that we're getting tradesmen and women from other states building some of this stuff. So we're actually creating a school in Los Angeles that's focusing on kids who have been in the foster care system, kids who have been homeless, kids who have been in the wrong zip code, according to some people, and giving them, starting in middle school, an education in transportation careers. So they can be the engineers, the CEOs, the operators of the transit system that we're actually building. Working with Karen Bass, Congresswoman, who I think is running for mayor here in Los Angeles. She actually helped us nationally to get local hire. In the Obama administration, it was gone for the Trump administration, but back again in the Biden administration, so that we can actually use local dollars and insist that we hire local people when we spend those local dollars together with federal money that used to in the past insist that you couldn't mandate local hiring. And we're doing that at our airport, where we have a $15 billion build out of LAX with a Hire LA program. I met a man who's never had a home. He was actually homeless with his family before. He was hired to help us build the airport, has his first bank account, his first home, et cetera. So, I think that this is a great model. We should be doing this at the national level with a national service model. That if you want to go to college, you get college without debt. If you don't go to college, you should get a housing down payment. But these rewards of showing young people how to benefit from this comeback and where those jobs of the future are. We have a clean tech incubator, for instance, that's incubating with both our public money and private dollars, new businesses, but with an emphasis on racial justice, so that we're seeing in communities like South Los Angeles, African-American, Latino workers emerge who are helping us keep our electric car chargers that are being built out now there. We have 300 jobs extracting oil in Los Angeles, but we have 20,000 new jobs installing solar. So you have to see where the economy is moving. You have to plan for it by building those schools and educating young people. You have to make it equity-based and include those communities that are excluded. And then, you have to allow the laws to hire and train at that local level with a pathway, hopefully, of these youth corps that can learn that, see their horizons widen, and change their cities and their world.
Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge and wisdom. It's my job to summarize it, but knowing some of you have to get off for your other meetings, I would like to thank you for your time and the comments that you have shared with us today. Tomorrow, we will hold a resolution meeting to summarize the discussion contents from this conference. We will share the copy of the resolution with you. I will quickly summarize that our speakers today spoke about job creation, building codes, circular economy, the power of people, and the giving land back to indigenous people, green gas housing emission, and the list goes on. The financial stability strategy was one of the key focus for most of the mayors. This concludes today's session, and thank you all again for being here. And now we will hear from two mayors who couldn't be here, Mayor Lynn Robinson from Bellevue, Washington, and Mayor Keller from Albuquerque.
Hi, I'm Lynn Robinson, Mayor of Bellevue, Washington. Thank you for the opportunity to share a bit about how Bellevue is addressing our long-term economic sustainability. When you think of a place or town where you want to be, you might think of a place that is welcoming, safe, vibrant, and where you feel that you belong. You might think of a place where you can easily get around, a place with beautiful natural areas, unique shops and activities, or a place that has strong arts and culture happenings. Bellevue aims to be that place where you want to be for all of these reasons, and we're working hard to ensure we consider the many different elements of a thriving city in our planning efforts, including our economic development plan and our environmental stewardship plan. We are a growing city, so as a community, we are preparing for all aspects of that growth while ensuring that at our core, we remain committed to our city's character and livability, the things that made us an attractive place for that growth to begin with, so we could continue thriving and remain resilient. Like every other city, we experienced challenges and had to adapt to new ways over the past 2.5 years. I'm very proud of how our community worked together, how our businesses supported each other, and how our leadership set differences aside to govern in the best interest of our continued vitality. Our 5-year economic development plan includes specific strategies to address the return of our tourism sector and the strength of our small businesses and startups. We just hosted an international half marathon event for the first time in our city and doubled the average hotel occupancy rates, which is a step in the right direction. No pun intended. We also have an environmental stewardship plan that has set bold goals for achieving reduced greenhouse gas emissions, energy efficiency, better waste management, and increase access to parks in the next 10 years. We have a goal to increase our tree canopy in the city to cover 40% of our land area, keeping the city cooler to reduce energy costs and reducing impermeable surfaces that can increase flooding and pollution. We are reviewing our tree codes later this year and recently implemented a temporary code amendment to better protect landmark trees in the meantime. We're in our budget process right now for the next biennium, and one of our commitments we have during budgeting, even in tough years, is that we look to the future, and we continue to invest where it serves our future best. We were diligent about building up reserves since the last major recession in 2008 so that we can continue to keep that commitment. It came in handy during the last 2 years when we dipped into the reserves to provide additional support for human services and businesses in our community when and where it was needed most. We modeled tolerance, inclusion, and effectiveness through shared vision. 7 diverse council members across the political spectrum have been able to work together and accomplish a lot for the future of the city of Bellevue. As a global community, inclusion is something Bellevue thinks about in all of our city functions and services. We will continue to promote the ethos of who we are. Bellevue is a city that welcomes the world and sees diversity as our strength. Our future success relies on continuing to engage with the community and provide spaces and programs that bring us together. We are lucky in Bellevue to have a very diverse and engaged community. Engaging with community leaders is key to helping us understand the true needs of the community and effectively addressing them. Cooperation is key. Our connections and partnerships are critical to this work, and we know we must make connections and build bridges where we can. I love working with bridge builders, and I'm so thankful to have many within our community, region, and around the world, all working together to ensure our communities collectively remain vibrant, resilient, and viable. Thank you again, and enjoy your forum sessions.
Hello, I'm Tim Keller, Mayor of Albuquerque, New Mexico. The Urban Economy Forum's work is so essential to pushing our cities towards a more sustainable future. Here in Albuquerque, we're on track to be 100% renewable by 2025. We've also launched something called the BRAIN, which is a long acronym about balancing energy and efficiency and innovation. But what it really is an incredible combination of software and hardware that allows us to control the temperature and the energy efficiency in every single one of our buildings. It is awesome. It's the first of its kind in the country. We're also trying to do things for pedestrians and outdoors that are innovative and also help build economy around certain places in our city. The foremost project of that is the rail trail. And it's an amazing pedestrian parkway that's going to connect our rail yards through downtown and connect it all the way to our old town, which hopefully you'll all be able to visit. So as we look forward to advancing sustainable development and also learning from each of you about what we can do and how we can help each other, we know that it takes all of us, local, national, and global levels, to work towards a better future. So with that, I want to welcome you to the city, and we hope you enjoy your stay in Albuquerque.